Well, as of tonight, it will be a little bit harder for Canadians in mainland China to get back home. Air Canada has officially suspended direct flights to and from Beijing and Shanghai for at least a month. That news coming this week after Canada issued a travel advisory in the wake of the coronavirus. Tonight, we caught up with passengers who made it back to Canada on the final 2 flights to Toronto.
My flight was February 3rd. And I changed today. I have no idea today is our last flight. So I was feel so lucky.
Veronica Kai made it home just under the wire, boarding the last direct Air Canada flight from Shanghai to Toronto after visiting family for Chinese New Year. But the university grad says it wasn't much of a vacation.
For this trip, I didn't even go anywhere else other than my parents' home and my mom and dad's home.
She says most of the passengers on her 12-hour flight wore masks on board, and she was questioned upon landing at Pearson, but wonders if that's enough.
I'm just very surprised that they did not measure your temperature. Yeah.
Check for fever.
Yeah, they just ask, do you have fever? Did you feel something unnormal, uncomfortable? It's actually, sometimes you can pretend.
And say you're fine.
Yeah.
Or maybe you don't even know.
Yeah.
The coronavirus has now been labeled a global health emergency, but officials say that hasn't changed any of its procedures at Pearson Airport. Additional screening questions are in place to identify travelers who visited Hubei province, and those experiencing flu-like symptoms are referred to public health staff. This Canadian says she's not too worried given the precautions being taken in China.
I noticed there is a kind of heat detector in Beijing airport, but I think they have it all the time. The government is really doing a lot of things, really good thing to control and to make this thing, work out.
Tracy Lee was able to get out of Beijing with her mother on a flight she'd booked months ago, but some other Canadians haven't been so lucky. The feds say this week they received requests for support from at least 126 Canadians in China, and they're now working to bring some of them back home. But they have yet to offer a timeline.
Help us understand why you don't have that information.
Because we are flying a non-commercial flight into a new country that is under quarantine, that has some very strict protocols about where planes can land and what the protocols might be. And so that requires negotiations with the Chinese government, which Global Affairs Canada is conducting right now.
Meanwhile, false information has been rampant online. Air Canada quickly quashing rumors of an infected patient on a flight from Toronto to Hong Kong, saying this video from Wednesday was of a medical incident on board and not related to the coronavirus. The health minister reminding the public to stay informed and avoid spreading misinformation about the disease.
As of now, there is no evidence that this disease is spread without the symptoms. It's really important to remember that. And I'll say this because, in fact, by spreading misinformation and jumping the gun in terms of how the disease spreads, it's creating quite a bit of fear, especially within the Chinese-Canadian community.
Now, Chinese officials have indicated that they will not allow anyone who has the coronavirus to leave that country. Canada's health minister says at this time there's no indication that any of those Canadians in China who have requested help from Ottawa actually have the disease.